Chapter 13. The Mirror Moon Map and Hidden Continents. Someone asked me what kind of strange map I have hanging in the background of one of my videos. It's called the Plasma Moon Map, or the Mirror Moon Map. It's based on a theory put forward by the Greek researcher Sturgios, who runs a YouTube channel called Vibes of Cosmos, particularly the moon map of the Earth. The theory is that the moon is a mirror that reflects the Earth. It outlines the continents that we know. But beyond that, we also see hidden, unknown continents. If the prospect of hidden continents doesn't bring out the adventurer in you, then I don't know what does. I didn't get the map because I believe it. I got it to explore. Once I've learned more, I'll either discard the idea or I'll support it. Regardless of whether it turns out to be true, it is important that we get away from the idea of already knowing all there is to know. The map appeals to me because it triggers my love for discovery. I also like it because it would help me explain lifelong flight path anomalies that I've experienced. If the map is true, there's a photo in the book, the one that hangs on my wall, then Africa and Australia are bigger than commonly shown, and the Americas are much smaller. The continents are not beside each other, but in a circle around a central North Pole. We also see an unknown continent in the South Pacific labeled Lemuria, and another one to the west of Africa, not far from the Cape Verde Islands, labeled Atlantis. In my book, The Mysteries of the Arctic and Antarctic, I first noted how common flight paths would make more sense with these alternative maps, quote-unquote. It would explain why my dozen flights from New Zealand to California did not go east, as they should have according to normal maps, but they went west with a stopover in Sydney. Every time this happened, I was puzzled, saying, Los Angeles is supposed to be in the opposite direction. But looking at these alternative maps, it is exactly the right direction. Nor did I ever get a direct flight from New Zealand to South America. Using a conventional map, I didn't see why it wouldn't be a problem. Every flight from New Zealand to any South American destination first goes to Los Angeles. Even if I wanted to go to Mexico, I first had to fly to Los Angeles. But if the mirror moon map is correct, it makes perfect sense. Los Angeles would be much closer than South America. I've seen posts from other people asking the same thing. For example, the path between Santiago, Chile, Dakar, and Johannesburg, South Africa. Santiago and Johannesburg are nearly on the same latitude, so why would you fly to Dakar? But on the moon map, Dakar is basically in between the two. As I previously mentioned, North and South America are relatively small on the mirrored moon map. Could the Americas really be this small compared to Africa? I guess it is possible. I've driven from the United States east to west coast in just a very few days, taking sleeping breaks. I've also driven in Africa, where a few days didn't even get me to the borders of one country. I recall trying to get a direct flight from New Zealand to Hawaii many times, but there were none, even though they are both supposed to be close to each other. Later I learned there are no flights traversing the South Pacific. Now, I am skeptical of this map because it is improbable that one could hide such big continents. You would think that some captain of a vessel or a plane would have spotted it by now. Too many people would have been involved in the cover-up. But on the other hand, belief is a powerful filter. If you don't believe there are hidden continents, then you don't look for any. Moreover, most people never really get the chance to have a close look around. The age of free pioneering exploration ended after extremely rigid border and travel restrictions were put in place over the last 100 years. And the few people who do travel to far-off places are usually funneled to predefined tourist attractions, quote-unquote, and deviations from the tourist trail are unwelcome in many parts. What is called Atlantis on this map should also be fairly easy to prove because it's so close to Africa. Anyone flying east from Dakar or Cape Verde should soon see the unknown land. I found 0 references to the existence of these lands. No whistleblowers, no legends, and no sailor stories. But on the other hand, there are places void of flight traffic. Those could be good places to hide continents. Maybe it is just a coincidence that there is a flight traffic gap precisely where the mirror map says we will find Lemuria and Atlantis. Perhaps Atlantis and Lemuria have in fact sunken, just like the ancients said. Then perhaps the moon is not showing a reflection of Earth as it is now, but as it was before the cataclysm. Then it is not a mirror moon, but an old photo moon, if these features are in fact outlined on the moon. I'm even skeptical of that, because you can read a lot into natural features. My intuitive sense is that the continents labeled Lemuria and Atlantis are not there, at least not anymore. And I've done some muscle testing on the subject and got no answer confirming the land masses existing today. But if there is anyone living in the vicinity of those areas who can tell otherwise, I don't mind being proven wrong. There's a photo from the official White House website photographed by Cecil Stoughton on October 19, 1963. It shows John F. Kennedy using an anomalous map on Air Force One. It also appears to be North Pole-centric. In it, Africa is also much bigger than the Americas. And there is an entirely unknown land on the left side of the map. It's not Antarctica. That is already shown below South America. It's too big and too distorted to be Australia. So what is it? A hidden continent, maybe? The map doesn't show America to be north of Africa, but beside it. It also doesn't show Lemuria or Atlantis, but it does show some strange unknown land to the west of the Americas. Someone I showed the map to argued that the unknown landmass is Asia, but Asia is already on the map in the upper right section. There are also ancient maps that follow the circular North Pole-centric model. I discussed maps from the 1500s previously. I put one of those in the book. In it, Australia, New Zealand, and perhaps Lemuria are all parts of one larger landmass. Have cataclysmic events moved things around? Maps like this confirm the possibility of hidden continents. It's also worth noting that international organizations use a North Pole-centric map. Organizations like the WHO, the United Nations, the World Meteorological Association, the International Maritime Organization, and UNIDO, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. Here's another problem of how far Australia is from South America. It is claimed that most flight traffic goes across the European and American Arctic because the distances are smaller. And the distances are smaller because the Earth is a globe that's fat in the middle and thinner at the top and bottom. I understand that concept. But then that would mean that there would also be massive flight traffic in the southern hemisphere. But there is next to none. Even planes in the southern continents first fly north before they cross the ocean. So where are the flights in the South Pacific, South Atlantic, and Indian Ocean? A friend of mine recalled a time when he was in Cape Town and needed to get to Perth, Australia, on urgent business. He could not find any direct flights to Perth, even though on a conventional map the two locations look fairly close. The only way to Perth was to first fly to Dubai or Doha, and then from there to Australia. On a normal map, a flight from Cape Town to Dubai and then to Perth is a huge diversion. But if you look on the moon map, it's not so much. A direct flight to Perth versus a stopover in Dubai looks approximately the same distance. The stopover is probably preferred because it allows for refueling. Regarding the flight paths, there are only two explanations that make sense to me. Either the Earth is flat as a pancake, or it's a globe but much bigger than we know, including vast hidden realms and even the continents we know located differently than we think. The official explanation is that planes don't fly routes where there are no refueling options. That's a falsehood I've addressed previously. The one objection to all of this may be that NASA has given us so many photos of Earth, we know what it looks like. End of story. But have they in fact given us pictures of Earth? Would you be surprised to learn otherwise? Google this. Why are there no pictures of Earth? You'll see there are 902 million results. One search preview says, while there are many satellites constantly capturing their views of Earth, most do so at low Earth orbit, a distance too close to see the whole Earth at one time. So the images you see of Earth are composite renderings from many satellite photos, apparently. Satellites are too low in orbit to capture the whole Earth. Because NASA's Earth is pieced together in Photoshop, it looks different from decade to decade. Before publishing this article, I hopped onto flightradar24.com, a great website, and I took a snapshot of current North Pole activity. The screenshot that I put in the book was taken at 11:40 a.m. Eastern Time on the 1st of September, 2022. There are 4 planes that are flying southward from the North Pole toward Western Canada. Looking at their flight paths, they all come from Dubai or Doha in the Middle East and are all flying to the U.S. One is flying to Seattle. So why are they crossing the North Pole or northwestern Canada to reach the United States? If we look at a globe as it is supposedly now, it doesn't look like any flight advantage is gained by going over the North Pole. But if you look at the alternative map, if you fly from the Gulf region to Seattle, going across northwestern Canada is the most direct route. You can again reference the 1892 Gleason map that I included in the book for comparison. The Gleason map is similar to the one President Kennedy used on Air Force One. It is something in between the plasma moon map and the official modern map. If you find these musings too much of a stretch and think that it's unlikely that secret continents would be withheld from us, consider that it has already happened in history. I've previously presented evidence that the Sumerians reached South America, the Phoenicians and Romans reached North America, and the Vikings and ancient Germans reached the Americas. There's even evidence that the Venetians traveled to Lake Erie and Lake Michigan before Columbus ever set foot on a ship. Meanwhile, they were showing the public maps that showed only Europe and the Middle East, reaching no further than northern Africa and western Asia. Why would they do this? Possibly to keep the resources and land to themselves. Then, after a phase of reawakening, once the cover-up was no longer realistically sustainable, people were allowed to, quote-unquote, discover the new unknown lands. The message here, in no uncertain terms, even if the alternative maps turn out to be false, we need many more people willing to take risks with out-of-the-box thinking. The current paradigm that says that we already know everything and now merely need to fill in the details not only runs counter to any learning or real advancement, but it is also proven wrong every time something brand new is discovered. Many wonderful revelations lie ahead for the open-minded. Thank you for listening. For more adventures and explorations, check in on the website falsehistory.net, and always the full collection of resources on realitycreation.org.